So, you're ready to start a garden, right? Well, it's mid-April. You're going to need a few things. You want to go to your essential grocery store, right? Because they probably have transplants, and if they have transplants, they're going to have dirt and compost and mulch. Perfect trifecta. So look for something like this that says organic on it, OMRI certified is best. Get you about 5 parts dirt to 1 part compost. So you get 5 bags of dirt, you get 1 bag of compost, top that off with 2 bags of mulch. It's a nice ratio that'll keep you set for a good raised bed. Now, we'll come over here and select transplants, and I'll show you how to do that. Definitely bring a box with you. It's going to save you a lot of trouble. First of all, plants leak dirt all over your car or whatever you're transporting them in. Boxes can be fit on the back of bike racks. They're just good to have. They're environmentally friendly. And yeah, so bring you a box, and don't assume that if the plants are in the sun, that means they're sun plants. A lot of plants will be brought out for display and then put back under the shade. But a lot of the time you can identify where plants go, because usually the store will put the shade plants under the shade because they don't want them to die. But anyway, so just be mindful of that. Now, another thing you want to be careful of is don't go to Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart, because they're going to have pesticide-laden transplants, and then that transfers to the bees, and then your whole garden is crap. You don't want that. So what you do want to do is look at the grow house that is making your transplants. So for instance, these folks, it is so small. Oh my goodness. Spring Creek Gardens. That is the tiniest writing. Okay, I apologize. I've talked to them before because I saw this bee friendly thing and was like, that looks suspicious, right? But even if it's USDA organic, USDA allows like 27 chemicals in it. So what I did was I called Spring Creek Gardens and I asked them, how do you raise your plants? And they told me point blank, well, we use a greenhouse, so we don't have pests and we don't need to put chemicals on our plants, and we care about that. And the lady on the phone was really passionate, and you know, that was good enough for me. I'm just gonna have to go with that. And I've used these plants for years, and the bees love them, and I've never seen any issues with that in my backyard habitat. So going to a local store, going with a local greenhouse or grow house is going to be your best bet. Now, which plant to select? Well, first thing you want to do is look up a planting guide, not just a general one. Look up the one for your city, because even within your state, you can have multiple grow zones. So find out exactly from your nursery what is going on. And if it says plant seed, plant a seed. If it says plant transplants, plant transplants. And so don't be ashamed of needing to plant transplants. Planting seeds is really tricky, and right now we can't really be playing around with having food. So some really easy plants that you can get your hands on that are really easy to grow. This, for instance, is a cherry tomato. And this variety, this yellow, this heirloom, is so delicious. Okay, but cherry tomatoes, 1, you can grow them in a pot, which is awesome. 2, they spread like gangbusters. The more you harvest them, the more tomatoes they produce. And even if you don't, they'll still spread like weeds. I had more cherry tomatoes it may have been a blueberry bush. So cherry tomatoes are great. However, some people can be allergic to nightshades. This one in particular, they look like little snowmen. They're really cute. Anyway, let's see. So also in the same family and good to plant together are peppers. Now, bell peppers, if you have a big container, good. Otherwise, I've seen bell peppers grow out of a compost pile. They're very resilient. They're gonna want warm weather though, so if you're expecting lower temperatures, maybe have a cloth ready, but we should be good to go in most areas of the country. And then another great thing to grow is going to be your squash and your zucchini. One zucchini plant is going to give you 8 to 10 pounds of fruit, which is definitely enough for a family. So be mindful when you plant the squash, it will grow and sprawl, and look into the way that you want to plant it, because it can plant along the ground, or you can do vertical gardening, which is really helpful so that your fruits don't get rotted on the floor. You can use a tomato cage to achieve this with cucumbers and squash as well as tomatoes. Here's your cucumbers. In my experience, these are really easy to grow from seed, and right now in mid-April, it's still okay to plant these from seed. However, if you want to ensure a really good crop, get you a transplant. And to go with that squash, we have some corn. The three sisters are corn, beans, and squash because they all... Well, a lot of people ask, what flowers should I plant to get rid of pests and maybe attract some butterflies? Well, look no further than some marigolds. They are amazing, and don't be alarmed when they basically die and get killed, because the bugs are going to come eat the marigolds before they eat your vegetable plants. So these are really shallow rooted, and because they spread, they can be bought often and replanted. If you notice they've all died really quick, well, I would definitely look at your plant and make sure it doesn't have any pests, because if the marigolds are dying quickly, that means that you've got pests in the area. But the more of these you plant, the safer your plants are going to be. You can also plant oregano, sage, dill, rosemary, peppermint, and lemon balm. Although those last two, peppermint and lemon balm, are invasive and will spread, but all of those repel bad bugs and their flowers attract bees. This is another type of marigold, and you definitely want the 6-pack because you can reuse this for making more transplants at home. And these, when they die, their pod is filled with seeds, and so pluck the dead buds off, and then you'll have more seeds for marigolds you can replant this season continuously and save some for next. Save all your seeds. No garden is complete without basil. Basil is very tender and finicky, so I definitely would recommend putting it in the shade. And maybe even like a dedicated herb garden. It's just that those herbs really like to grow together. They're in a great family. If you put them together, they'll start kind of making like a barrier for the rest of your plants, and they're all medicinal in the same way regarding their antiviral, antibacterial properties. So I really like to put my rosemary and oregano and thyme and basil kind of in a part shade, part sun, putting the rosemary and oregano more in the sun and protecting the basil by keeping it in the shade. Basil is amazing for the bees. They get all over it. Pink oregano is specifically good for bees as well. And if you're in a pretty hot state, you're going to want to go ahead and get a big tomato, at least this size, because it's pretty late in the game to be getting tomatoes going. But if you're in a northern state, you can get away with a smaller transplant. I did just plant some seeds, but I did it in a container, and I have some faith in myself. And then beyond that, other flowers you can plant would be like echinacea, and because that's medicinal, and red bee clover. It'll spread and come back every single year. You can plant leeks, you can plant onions. They repel bad bugs and attract good bugs. Those all are in season and available to use for you. You just get an onion from the grocery store, put it in, and watch it shoot off a beautiful flower that explodes, and the bees just come all over it, and then you'll have onions replicate over and over, and it's just wonderful. So the flowers you plant that bees like, that are bee flowers, they will attract other pollinators, and they'll also attract predator bugs that are good because they kill pest bugs. So yeah, just creating that harmonic balance in your garden. If you're asking yourself, is my garden missing this? Well, maybe look into it. And so yeah, I hope this was helpful. Local garden store, local as you can, greenhouse. Don't be afraid to call them and find out what's going on. Yeah, so don't use pesticides, please. Please don't use pesticides. Look into diatomaceous earth or even neem oil if you have some problems. And now's the time to order your ladybugs. They're essential for keeping your aphids and mites under control, and they're amazing to watch in your garden. The kids will love them. Anyhow, I wish you all a happy harvest. Take care.